Good morning to you. I'm in St John the Baptist Church grounds this morning, and just to pan up, you can see the church. It's a little place called Lound, and it's on the border of Norfolk and Suffolk, just inside Norfolk. And it's like many of the churches round here, full of ancient graves. And at the back is a similar situation to the church that I go to in Wrentham, where you see family plots and you see people with the same name that have died within close proximity of one another. And of course, in those days, they didn't have the medical technology that we have today. They didn't have the advanced science that we hear our experts so proudly boasting about. And this morning I was thinking about the word science and how God considers science from his perspective, and particularly the way we consider science in comparison to the way God sees science. So I'd like to share a couple of stories with you this morning from the scriptures that highlight what I feel the Lord wants to say to us. Be with you shortly. Actually, as I'm making my way out of the church grounds, I'm walking towards a beautiful village green, which is very typical of these parts of England. In fact, I suppose really all parts of rural England, you'll find the village green, where lots of things happen. And I'll show that to you in a second. So here I am on the village green. I'm actually making my way towards what I suppose you would call the bandstand. You can see it just behind my head there. Little wooden circular building, and it's from there that I'll talk to you. But beautiful things happen on these village greens in the summer. People come out with their children and they come to enjoy the warm summer days. And of course we all like to enjoy warm summer days in good health, don't we? And I'm thinking particularly about that this morning, especially when you look at those graves. Be with you in a sec. The bandstand, or if you can call it a bandstand, really, it's rather small. It's probably just a shelter from the rain, I think. Anyway, I'll go in here and so where I'll be able to share the word. Well, here I am inside this little circular area. It's quite comfortable, actually. I'm able to put the camera up against one of the supporting pillars. So, science. What is God? Is he pro-science or anti-science? I was looking at two stories in the Bible, and I want to read them to you and just see what God's perspective is on things. Because very often we Christians, we're called anti-scientific, aren't we? We're regarded as a bit sort of a little bit weird, a bit Fruit Loopy, because we don't accept the science, or we don't, as the term goes, follow the science. And of course the science is really what man has discovered and observed over periods of time. And yes, medical science certainly has achieved a lot, and we're very grateful to that, and the way that life has been extended, and it's an amazing thing. But how much cognizance does God take of the science that we discover? And let's have a look here. First of all, 1 Kings, and it's chapter 18, and I'm just going to read the 9 verses of the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And I'm going to read from verse 30 to 39. See what the Lord says here. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which was in ruins. And Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descending from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel." And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he dug a trench round it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood, cut the bull into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, that's to the prophets of Baal, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," and he ordered, and they did it a 3rd time. By this time, just to interject here, these prophets of Baal might have been wondering what on earth Elijah was up to. building an altar, which of course is started with fire, and there's Elijah coming along telling them to fill the area with water. So he goes on. The water ran down the altar and even filled the trench. You can imagine the scene, can't you? A trench full of water. These men all standing round wondering what's going to happen next. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are a God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command." This is the word of the Lord. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, so that these people will know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also, that's the key, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." And of course, Elijah's victory is assured. But that's anti-science, isn't it? Fire licked up water. It's the other way round. Water licks up fire. But in God's book, He can achieve the complete opposite to what we understand as logical physics or logical chemistry or the way things work. We're so obsessed, aren't we, in this modernized world of the way things work, particular laws that have been discovered, Einstein's theory of relativity, things that can't be changed, large hadron colliders spinning tiny particles round at almost the speed of light, expecting to find new things, following the science at the speed of light. It's really interesting. God doesn't need our science, does He? No, He doesn't need it at all. He can go completely against it when He wants to. And I just want to present another example to you here. Joshua chapter 10. I'm looking at verses 6 to 7 and 12 to 15. And of course this is the story here where the Gibeonites are asking for Joshua's help against the Amorite kings. I won't go into the history, but that's just the background to this. Anyway, Joshua 10 from verses 6 to 7. The Gibeonites then sent word to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal. "Do you abandon your servants? Come up to us and quickly save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings from the hill country have joined forces against us." So it was a serious situation. So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. And the Lord said to Joshua, was carrying on here, "Do not be afraid of them," verse 8. "I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." And after an all-night march, they arrived eventually at where the Lord was going to do what He'd promised to do, fight for them. And so it goes on here, verses 12 to 15. "On the day the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in the presence of Israel," this has to be one of the most incredible acts of faith that one can imagine in the Bible. Can you imagine this? Listen to this. "O sun, stand still over Gibeon. O moon, over the valley of Ajalon." And then verse 13. "At the word and command of Joshua, so the sun stood still, and the moon stopped in its orbit, till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. As it is written in the book of Jasher, the sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down for about a full day. There has never been a day like it before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a man. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel." Isn't that incredible? The Lord was fighting for Israel. There's never been a day since when He listened to a man the way He listened to Joshua. And it's interesting too that, again, completely against the science. How can the sun stand still? But note that the moon also had to stop. As we know, the moon circles the earth, And this was a sign as well that all those things that we regard in particular ways, the way that things operate, stopped operating in that way. And yes, they'll continue to call us people who are anti-science. But whose science did God create? He created science that belongs to him, that belongs only to him. He has his ways. My ways are past finding out, he says. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. My ways are higher than your ways. And I believe too in the coming days, in the coming times, as we see the church becoming more and more persecuted, so she's going to have to stand more and more in faith, looking to God, asking him for miracles, amazing things to happen. And they may be things that will go completely against the science. I mean, we go into churches sometimes and we see people getting prayed for, and sometimes people genuinely getting healed from medical conditions. Some people will say that the gifts of healing stopped at the time of the apostles. I don't believe that. People are still praying for my ankle. It hasn't completely healed yet, but I'm trusting God that eventually it will do, and that God will have his way. Okay, sometimes things don't happen, but God always is sovereign, and he showed his power here, didn't he, with Elijah? He licked up the water. The fire licked up the water, the complete opposite. He overturned the science of men. And I believe that's what he's continuing to do, overturning the ideas and notions that people have, that they have now discovered the God particle. You can spin your electrons or protons at whatever speed you want, but you'll never discover the mind of God. You'll never discover the science of God. And I'm quite sure that one day when we're in his presence and we'll ask him all sorts of questions, we'll get answers that we never imagined, that we never expected. We'll be completely surprised. But it doesn't take a people with great knowledge, does it, to make science turn around? Elijah and Joshua, not learned men, but men of great faith, men with power, the power of God in their hearts, going against the science. And let's not be fearful of what the world have to say when they tell us that we're Luddites and that we are living in the dark ages and that we have no understanding. We are worshippers of the God who understands, worshippers of the God that created everything. Isn't that incredible? And let's flip forward to the New Testament. Think about the miracles of Jesus. Completely anti-science. What did he do with the man that he healed from blindness? He took some clay, put it on the man's eyes like this. Man must have wondered what on earth Jesus was doing. And I mean, I can't personally understand if there was any science in that, or Jesus was just demonstrating something that's ridiculous, that wouldn't heal blindness at all, but yet it did. And all those other wonderful miracles that Jesus did, and the casting out of devils. Of course, science will say that devils don't even exist. Thwarting the schemes of men. That's what God does. And he changes hearts and he changes minds. And people get healed not only of physical illnesses, but mental illnesses, emotional illnesses. God is a God of wonders, and he doesn't need the science of men. So I'll leave you with that thought this morning. God doesn't need your science, and he doesn't need my science. He has his ways that are past finding out. He makes the sun stand still, and he licks up water with fire. He's the God that overturns what we understand as the truth. And he'll continue to do that if we just have faith and belief. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And we need that power, don't we, in these last days? I pray today is blessed for you, and I'll be back on Thursday.